this morning, I want to talk about some key principles of the pack shed, things to think about in your WashPack area. And then Pheonix provides some examples, and same with David and Kelly. And then we'll open it up and hear from others as well. So to jump right into it, post-harvest and produce safety is one of the top key principles. Flow and lean, buildings and infrastructure, equipment and tools. That's kind of how we break up and think about pack sheds. Now, the first one, post-harvest and produce safety, it's where a harvested plant turns into a food product, really. And it's also an area where bacteria can grow. So that's why produce safety is super important in the pack shed, is because it's where a lot of hazards can take place. It's where a lot of handling takes place. And you need to be really mindful and careful about your processes and your steps through there in order to minimize risk. Another key point to the pack shed is thinking about flow and lean principles. So whether your pack shed is a picnic table or a folding table, maybe under a tent, or you've got a full dedicated building, flow and lean takes everything and puts it into use. So it's helpful to think in a somewhat linear fashion, or at least think about it in a linear fashion. It doesn't have to be in a straight line, but where your product comes in and where it goes out, how does it get washed in between, and trying to minimize crisscrossing paths with you or other employees, zigzagging around the room can really just like be super inefficient and messy. And if you think about it in a way that product comes in, it gets washed, it gets stored, it goes out, it simplifies the process. And you want to think about this in three different ways, both for your people, you, yourself, your employees, the product, the crops, as well as the water. And not only the water that you're using for wash water, but the water that your wastewater or your wash water as well. Where is that going? Where is your compost going? Where is the culls going? Because if that's not managed, then it's also going to get really messy. So those are all like some key principles that you need to think about, whether you're large or small. Now, thinking about buildings and infrastructure, anything can work, really. You can have a canopy, a carport, a high tunnel. I've seen those work really well. Obviously, there's pros and cons to all of that. You can have pavilions, so just a lid over a roof over maybe a slab, maybe not a slab. And then you can close that in maybe in another year, or build a dedicated packing barn or pack shed. Within those areas, whether it be small or large, you need to take in consideration your utilities. So your water, your power, your drainage. You're going to need, you need to think about that no matter what your scale. And then the design, you need to think about design characteristics that make it both comfortable, enjoyable, as well as functional. Because that's where you spend a lot of your time. There's a lot of labor going into washing and packing produce. So thinking about that space and doing little things, whether it be adjusting the height of a table or investing in a tool that just works a lot better or is more comfortable, or gear that protects you from getting cold and wet. All those little things add up to making a comfortable, enjoyable, and functional space on your farm. And then lastly, materials, whether that just be a countertop or whether that be really expensive wash lines, you need to make sure all that your materials that are primarily food contact are clean, are durable and cleanable, because they have direct contact to food. And then ideally, if you're building a building, that the building itself, the walls, the floors, the ceilings are not introducing any hazards as well, and that they can be also cleaned and are durable. Next up is equipment. You need to take careful consideration into thinking about your equipment. These can be simple stock tanks or tubs for washing things, sinks, barrel washers, barrel or brush washers, rinse conveyors, greens spinners. There is so much equipment that could be included, and may or may not be used depending on how much product you're trying to get through your farm. Cleaning and sanitizing needs to be a priority. I just want to shout that out again. And same with coolers. They also need to be managed, and they can be built and constructed in many different ways that fit many different budgets, whether that be a built-in closet that you DIY yourself with insulation panels and a cool bot, totally fine. Or you can spend nice money on locked together panels or purchased in cooler unit at like a standalone unit with split refrigeration that can handle larger loads. And then lastly, one of the key principles here is tools, whether that be your containers, your hoses, cleaning tools, thermostats, written records. All of these things you need to have on your mind and all play into a system that's going to be lean and efficient for your farm. And this photo is so satisfying to me. It just goes to show how well a really nice squeegee can work. And using it is just, it makes you feel good. So I just I like to share that. Now, every single one of these topics, we've turned into a whole presentation and a webinar in itself. So honestly, I'll be honest, it was quite difficult to narrow down a few slides to just share the principles this morning, because I wanted to leave as much time for an open floor and discussion as possible, because we've got slide decks that go into great depth on all of these. And we've got it set up as a free webinar on YouTube, or linked right here down here in the bottom to take you to the blog post. That steps you through everything. If you're just starting at ground zero or you're renovating something, it gives you examples, small to large, about things to consider, what to look for, what's worked for farms. So this is kind of like a mini course that you can watch on your own time. Along with that, we've got a great handful of post-harvest case studies. We've got examples of a barn house construction at Footprint Farm. That was a rather larger project for a really 2-acre market garden. And so we've got good examples of that. Mighty Food Farm, which has a CSA room, as well as WashPack in one building. A couple examples of a renovated dairy barn. We've got Last Resort Farm, and not pictured here is New Leaf Organics, which also includes a commercial kitchen included, where she works with a caterer in the same space. So that we've got that as another example. And then Route 5 Farm, which is a pole barn, which they had then enclosed to make a WashPack inside, with kind of a covered porch that wraps around the outside, which is great for their barrel washer or bin washing. So there are a few examples that go into great detail. It's a blog post, it's a PDF fact sheet. We've got video interviews with all of these farmers that really show the details. So if you're looking for inspiration or something to watch as you're cozying up by the fire this winter, there's a lot of content available for you. We've got quite an extensive blog on post-harvest resources. I am the host of the Ag Engineering Podcast. So if you don't mind the sound of my voice, I chat with farmers about tools, tips, and techniques that improve the sustainability of their farm, whether that be talking about high tunnels or green spinners. We got a wide range of subjects with over 50 episodes and a whole lot more coming out this winter. So you could tune into that. I've got quite a few fun on-farm videos on our YouTube channel, as well as a bunch of presentations that go into details on cleaning and sanitizing and WashPack presentations. We've got like an hour conversation just on barrel washers alone, or rinse conveyor guidance. So there's lots of areas where you can dive in deeper that I encourage you to check out. If you've got any direct questions, feel free to reach out to myself, Andy Chamberlin, my colleague Chris Callahan, or Hans Estrin. We work as a team, as the produce safety team at UVM Extension. Now, that kind of wraps up my portion of the presentation here. And Chris sent out an email to those registered for this meeting with a couple of leading questions to walk us into here. And those leading questions were, what's working well for you in the pack shed and what's not working well? What's one win from this year, or what's one point of frustration? So those were a couple priming questions that we wanted to share and kind of kick off the conversation today. And now Pheonix is the first farm to talk about what's going on his farm. He's kind of mid-construction here, but let's hear from him on how his WashPack project is going.
Yeah, hi. I'm Pheonix OBrien, Brook Farm. We're located in Thorndike, Maine. We're growing this year 12 acres of produce in the field, and we have about a third of an acre in high tunnels. We're pretty actively growing our business and our farm. We primarily sell to wholesale markets, mostly supermarkets are about 75% of our business, Whole Foods and Hannaford's across the state and in New Hampshire. Work with distributors some. So that being said, we are subject to most all produce safety rules, FSMA-wise, and then also we are required to have GAP for our products. And we aren't as diverse as some vegetable farms. We're still grow mixed vegetables, but we handle larger volumes of certain crops. For example, we grow like 3.5 acres of winter squash. So the stuff we're handling is, generally speaking, in larger volumes of whatever that might be. So we are blessed with, as you can see in the background, a bunch of antique livestock barns. We found that it was going to be more money to renovate those and have a less than ideal space. So we decided to build new. Our project is a 50 by 60 steel building. Basically just a big open space with a trench drain in it. Here there's a picture of a loading dock, and then the other slide is a picture of plumbing for toilet, shower. We have a septic put in, one for worker comfort, two, we intend to get some H2A labor on the farm in the very short term. So we built that aspect of it into the pack house. Total cost of the project, I think it's for $160,000. Part of that was a grant through Maine Farmland Trust. The other part was financed through the Farm Service Agency. The big goals, we spent quite a lot of time working with Andy and Chris and Hans, a couple of Zoom meeting things, help lay it out. But basically we just ended up with a big open space with a trench drain in the middle, cooler in the back corner, and this is a shot of the loading dock. Some of the things that dictated what we were doing, we mechanically harvest our roots in bulk bins, so being able to handle pallet jacks, there you go. Being able to handle those with forklifts and pallet jacks, making the building large enough to maneuver those things and electric pallet jacks. I'm pretty young. We want to do this for our length of our career and not be too hurt up at the end of it. We want our employees to keep coming back and not feel like this is too hard to do. And we're at a point where, we used to do a lot of hand handling, and that just we're at the point where it's costing us a lot of money to do that. So we really need to mechanize the handling aspect of things. Some other, I mean, a pretty basic, really just a wide open space with an employee break room and a bathroom. Um,
Loading dock there, did I see?
loading dock for loading trucks. You know, right now we're spending, oh, and this is something that can't really, a lot harder to put in after the fact, but there's going to be a dock leveler going in here that can accommodate different heights of trucks. Um, you know, hard to do after the fact. We get a lot of deliveries in big trucks and make their lives easier. You know, my delivery driver spends over an hour right now hand loading a truck twice a week at least. Costs me a lot of money. Um, you know, so just kind of looking down the road, how we plan to grow and what we're dealing with in the immediate future, but also saying, hey, you know, in 5 years, we don't want to fully outgrow the space immediately. Um, yeah, I didn't include any current pictures of our of what we're using to pack now. We currently pack in our seedling house, which has a slab in it, which honestly, you know, it's tight and we definitely waste a lot of time people moving around each other and shuffling stuff in and out of there. But it's, you know, for what it cost us, it was a huge improvement over having nothing. So employees are warm. There's concrete to roll pallets around on, et cetera, et cetera. Questions, other things? I think I put a slide of the equipment in there that we use. Maybe not, or a video.
Nope, I must have missed that.
Didn't make it. Yeah, some of the equipment we use, and I would highly recommend any farm that can't afford it and the price is only going up. We have an AZS rinse conveyor, and that fully changed the, like, you know, this year we were moving twice the produce over last year and in the same amount of time with the same amount of people. Through that, we do a lot of bunched greens, a lot of head lettuce. And we field pack into wax boxes and run that through as a hydro cooler, and it, you know, quality was just as good, if not better, and you know, definitely is paying for itself every day that it's in use.
When you're
Yeah,
doing that, are you running the wax boxes through with with it open?
with the wax, yep, with the wax boxes open, we pack in the cool of the morning into the boxes, bring them right into the pack shed, run them through at a relatively slow speed, and one person's feeding, the other person's on the other side and slapping stickers on and then palletizing them, and from there into the cooler. Works great. Run
Are you
bunch.
are
I'm
you
sorry,
chilling that water at all, or is that just cold well water?
that's just cold well water.
Yep.
It would be nice if it was colder, but it's been good enough because we're going right into the cooler. Um, yeah, run bunches through it. You know, we do a lot of bunched radish in the spring. What used to take us hours of hand spraying is literally minutes. Yeah, it's a great tool. It's all stainless. You know, I don't think it's not really gonna deteriorate too rapidly. Um, yeah,
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing.
yeah, yeah.
Are there, CJ? I can't see the chat. Are there any questions or comments at this point?
No questions have come up yet. But also just point out that I don't think Pheonix mentioned it, but his new WashPack area is under construction, if that wasn't obvious by the picture.
Yeah. They're I'm watching them build it as we speak. They only come once a week. Goes really slow. It's great.
Maybe let's give folks 20 or 30 seconds. There's a question. Yeah, is the rinse conveyor outdoors or indoors, Pheonix?
Yeah, I did include a picture of kind of our current wash setup, but we have our seedling house, and it gets tight in the summertime, but it's in a seedling house with a concrete slab. So it's indoors in a conditioned space. Yeah, it's a big piece of equipment. I mean, you definitely don't want to, you want it on a slab or not moving at all. Yeah, there you go. That's my seedling house. Yeah, and so you can see here, like, I mean, we just have some spot drains. The floor is sloped to that. This was a slab that we just poured on our own. Definitely didn't come out perfect, but we actually did pretty good. We raked the subgrade out, the gravel, to get a 1/8 inch per foot going to, there's 3 floor drains. Hard to see them, but there are 3 in there. And then the whole slab is higher on the outside edges than in the middle. And this was, you know, honestly not, somebody gave me the tunnel frame, so that made it, that obviously helped on cost. But I mean, I think we were around $15,000 to get this up. And this is our seedling house and our WashPack station, and we move a lot of produce through here. I mean, it's really tight. It's 21 by 72 long, but it's a lot better than nothing.
Were you using that space for year-round wash pack, or does that turn into winter covered storage?
No, we were washing and packing, and that we do winter greens and wash roots through the winter. And yeah, we used it all last winter. Probably burned too much propane, but we don't heat it at night. But we also cure our winter squash in here, which is super. We just stack it in bulk bins with fans blowing through it, and put a shade cloth on, kick the heat up, and it, you know, so it's, for the money we have into it, it's been a super space. Very, very good use of space, or of money for the space. I saw Courtney Williams' question there. We put a shade cloth over it that we, it's like a heavy duty, I don't know what the percentage is, but we like double it up 3 times. So we have like some serious shade. Yeah.
Any other questions, folks? Unmute.
Freshly skinned.
I like the concrete pad leading up to it too. That's like a nice landing zone.
Yeah. So, and that's one day, when we're not using it to wash and pack, that's going to be a wooden structure for a potting shed area, you know, to have some covered space. But we decided not to build it so quickly, just because, like you say, Andy, it is a super spot to put pallets, load up. You know, it's actually been really handy just to have that open concrete area outside, move waste on, and then we can pull it away with the tractor on a set of forks. Yeah, been great. Oh, I guess the other thing that I did neglect to mention, I meant to start with, for folks thinking about building WashPack sheds, when we were first pricing out and doing ours, you know, I spoke with we were kind of deliberating about doing this, doing that, steel building, wood, putting a frost wall in versus a slab on grade. And I called the guy who was doing the word is skipping my mind, not the assessment, but the appraisal of the building, because we were taking out a mortgage to put it up. You know, I asked him, like, do any of these things add value to it? What's the point? Because generally speaking, when you build, the actual value of the building versus what it costs, there's a disparity, not in your favor. And he said to me that you should build it as cheaply as you can and still do what you need it to do. You know, because they're looking at it as it's a commercial building. The value isn't in the fact that you have a good foundation under it, or you have a beautiful wood timber frame barn, or, you know, you see people do that. Like, the value is how efficiently and effectively you can move material through it and make money with the building. So like the things that were more valuable were the loading dock, putting radiant heat in the floor. It's like $1,000 worth of tubing. That adds a lot more value if somebody were to use it as a shop or continue to use it as a produce packing house. That actually added a lot more value, and that's really when you're, especially if you're financing these things, but you should be looking at that. That's how these people are looking at it.
So are you trying to increase value on paper or trying to keep that at a minimum for like tax purposes and things?
We were just trying to borrow as much money as we could to build as big a pack shed, within reason, as build a big a pack shed as we could. So that was more where I was coming at it from. The thing that I was deliberating over was pouring a frost wall or not. So that's kind of where I got to talking to him, but we just want an efficient space that's big enough. Yeah. And then I guess the other thing is we did have, and I believe I sent it to Andy and Chris, but we had a engineer design our pad. That was like $1,000. I feel like it was really, really worth it to have the concrete guy have a set of plans to go off of. Instead of just being like, oh, I think this will work, somebody's accountable somewhere. And then he did design us a trench drain as well that was a little bit different than what you guys had. I think in theory, pretty rugged as far as not having the slab split on us, crack up.
The question in the chat about where is your cooler currently and after the transition to the steel building?
Yeah, right now I've got it just up on we have a shipping container for bulk storage, and then my walk-in cooler is just like up on cribbing outside. We set it up our first year here in a big hurry. It's a really bad setup. I pay a lot of people a lot of money just to like shuffle stuff in and out of it. I should have included, it's terrible. It's worked, but it's like so inefficient. Game plan is it's going to be in the corner of the building and just straight shot with a pallet right out the loading dock, just all on one floor, everything on a pallet or a U-boat. Yeah, make life easy.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your farm as an example.
Oh, a pleasure.
David, are you on the call and want to chat a little bit about your pack shed setup?
Dave Asmussen, you mean? Me?
Yes. Good morning.
Morning. Hey there. Let's turn my video on. Hi, I'm here.
Excellent.
I am currently in my pack shed. Are you doing a presentation on?
Yeah, you'd sent over a couple of pictures and a few notes, so I thought maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Cool.
You provided mixed veg, working about an acre plus 3 hoop houses, both
Yep.
wholesale and farmers market, 1 to 3 employees.
Yeah. Hi there. Yeah. So Dave, Blue Belfarm, like he said, currently packing orders right now in our pack shed, which is here. There's a walk-in cooler that is 5 by 12. It's an old commercial cooler that we improved with panels on the outside from a NRCS energy or a Rural Development Energy Efficiency grant. So there's a lot of insulation in that. And then this is the shed here, and it's built. It's a series of 8 by 8 squares of PT lumber with Advantech on top, which is a terrible idea. I don't recommend that. but this is sort of piecemealed together as time and finances allowed. So it's sort of the other end of the spectrum in terms of investment upfront. Started with just, a single square here, and then eventually added a roof, which is 4x4 posts and a corrugated metal roof, and then attached down at the bottom to the base. We have our benches here, wood, bagging. We have our water hose up above that comes to large spigots, so we can fill up these gray fish totes. And these get filled up quickly, and we can dunk our greens and veggies really fast. And then that just gets dumped out onto the ground. And then we have 2 hose setups here for our sprayers, just for washing out bins and such. And then the other one we can connect to a pressure washer that helps clear out our bins. This destructive pile here is supposed to be an organized pile of bulb crates, but the high wind knocked it all over. So it'd be really great to have walls here at some point to keep the wind down. But it's also really nice in the summer to have airflow here. So it's a really great place to hang out in the summer. But in the November, it kind of stinks. I wish we had some walls. Hand washing sink. This is a foot pedal operated guy here. So just a block of wood goes to a bungee cord on a 1/4 turn valve. And that's a bungee up there. And old plumbing parts here. So you can do hands-free hand washing, so you don't get your hose all muddy or anything like that. And then that drains out the back along with the rest of the wash water that goes where we don't walk into a culvert dry well area. I guess things that we would do differently. We're gonna redo the floor here with pressure treated decking lumber with nice wide slats so the water goes through. The idea with starting with the Advantech was it's a flat space that, is not pressure treated lumber, so it could be a little bit more food safe, or at least not prohibited by certification. But really we keep everything in bins, so it was a silly idea. Now it's just rotten. So we've got some dangerous spots in the floor now. They're nice and squishy. Best thing ever is the green spinner here and electricity. We currently have one, it's a GFI protected outlet out here, and it's up high so it doesn't get blasted. But I wish we had 3 times more power out here to plug in stuff, because we always need to plug in the scale, which runs out of batteries. And it'd be nice to have a radio here too. It'd be good. Here's our order board for shipping out orders. So this is always available. It's just a whiteboard. Chop stuff down on there and then cross things off as we fill out orders. And then fortunately, the truck is right here to load up into. So that's a very easy setup. The step up and down into the wash station and up and down into the cooler kind of stinks, and it would be great if these were head on so that you could run straight into them. But we wanted to leave space to access the garage here, and so we put it in kind of a straight shot where we weren't expanding out into the parking lot area as much. With 2 people, it's fine. With 4 people, everybody bumps into each other and there's not enough space. the air conditioner for the CoolBot setup also like blasts right into the area here, which is kind of nice and warm. So loud, and then you can't hear your podcasts and people talking and stuff like that. So I'd probably point it somewhere else. Anything else I should cover? What do you think?
Have any lights?
I have one battery powered light up here. And so that allows me to do some bare bones packing when I need to. It's just a motion sensor, $15 thing from Lowe's. If I do need to do a lot of packing at night, then I go into the barn, which is just a multi-purpose open space in there. There is a another walk-in cooler in there that's 8x8, and that's our warm cooler. And so that's the one for squash and cucumbers and peppers and stuff like that. So that's tomatoes, that stays at 55 degrees. And then this outside one is the cold cooler, which is at 34. So it's kind of a pain to have the two coolers separated, but that's the space that we had. I guess the one nice thing about the inside one is it is on the concrete slab in the garage, so we can wheel in the carts of the heavy things like tomatoes and squash and cucumbers. So like the flat space inside the cooler to outside is freaking amazing, and it's more frustrating in this one here.
Yeah. Two questions in the chat. One is, how do you plan to handle veggie refuse with the new flooring? Will it just wash through?
The veggie refuse?
Yeah.
Currently, the idea would be to use a broom, which is your multi-purpose.
An integrated broom holder there.
That's
nice. Yeah.
Right. So these rafters, like the idea with having the roof down low here was, it's nice, accessible place, and you can get a good backstretch off of there, which is awesome. And it holds salad spinner baskets and lids and extra boxes and stuff like that. But yeah, cool. So the veggie refuse is like synthetic broom, brush it off the edge into the drain area, and scoop as much as we can into a compost wheelbarrow as well.
And the second question was, what kind of greens spinner are you using? Is that a greens machine?
Yeah, this is the greens machine by Electrolux Dito. I have not found any replacement parts for these. Nothing's broke on it yet, but I don't think they make this one anymore. I haven't seen any in poly. I've only seen them in stainless. If anybody else sees one that's in poly, that would be great, because that would probably be a cheaper thing, because the stainless ones are close to $2,000. This one was purchased used, and it's great. We had used the orange hand crank spinner for a number of years, and then this came by, and we still have the orange crank one just as a backup in case this one dies.
Thanks. I think that's all the questions that were in the chat box, but somebody told me on it.
Pretty basic. Low key place.
It's working though.
I really like the modularity of it, how you built it out in 8x8 sections. That's a nice aspect of it.
It was
budget.
Yeah, helpful in terms of budget, though. You always go back in time and design like a big concrete pad and have it done once and then pay it off later. It sounds pretty sweet too. Or at least, hindsight is great. But a modular 8x8 platform is very approachable, and there's no debt associated with it. It's huge.
Would painting the floor have bought you some time, or is that just delaying a project you have to repair again later?
I doubt it would have lasted a week. We have some Advantech flooring that is painted in the house, and the paint just wore right off with muddy shoes really quick. So I don't think that would have been worthwhile at all. And currently, there's no way you could get anything really to stick here.
Right. Well, this is awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. I mean, I just want to like take a second to reflect on how sweet technology is at times. I mean, we're all at home and we just got a live virtual tour of your pack shed on your farm while you're in use. I mean, this is sweet. So thanks so much. That was awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks for sharing or all your stuff. Looking forward to keeping in listening while we're packing.
Sounds good. Thanks for tuning in and joining.
Thank you.
Those are just a couple shots, but we saw it live, so that's even better. Next up, Kelly Roberts from Roots Farm shared some photos. Are you on the call today and want to talk about your farm? Well, if you're on, feel free to unmute and pipe in, but she sent a couple of photos over through email and just wanted to point out a few things about their wash areas. They've got 2 outdoor wash pack stands, an outdoor area for spraying off bunches, head lettuce, root crops, etc. Some pros to being outdoors means there's less cleanup to do and there's lots of space, and water drainage is not usually an issue. Some cons are that shade is inconsistent, like the large willow tree overhead that also looks like fell down fairly recently. It forces them to wash quickly to try to get things in the cooler as soon as possible, which is good, but feels like a stressor in peak summer. They use 2 hoses for spraying, so having some kind of hands-free sprayer would help. Occasionally, when they have really wet weather, the ground around the wash shed gets really saturated with water from all the washing. This looks like a pretty current photo, and you all know how November is just wet in general, so there's some downsides. A couple of thoughts I had here is I like the sloped table. Even just a slight incline might make a really nice difference ergonomically, visually, bringing the crop or the bins closer to you. So that's pretty sweet. A second area that she sent along was that this indoor greens wash area, which they call the barn house, is a high tunnel that they use specifically for wash pack and storage. So it's
sound coming in now.
Oh, hey.
Okay, sound's coming in.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, video's coming.
All right.
Can you see us now?
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. So I don't know. We were trying to figure out the audio, so we didn't hear what you said so far. I think I heard you talking about the willow tree and at least the picture is just from yesterday. It's pretty wet out there right now.
All right. We gave a quick background. We're on the smaller end of the scale here, 1.5 acres, year-round market garden, primarily all retail, so CSA and year-round farmers markets. It's pretty diversified veggies. And yeah, we've definitely, we've been around about 10 years, but, started even smaller. So kind of, again, each year adding a little bit and growing. But we have a pretty big output for our tiny size. So I don't know.
So on the outdoor, we do small quantities of a lot of different stuff. So, it might be like a couple of crates of radishes and stuff. So generally the person that harvests the radishes will bring them up, spray them off on these tables, and then bring them into the cool box. So we're not moving like pallets of material around and stuff. So the outdoor area is for spraying. You can see, we have pallets to stand on. The ground slopes towards the area in between the 2 spray tables, so all the water drains towards there naturally. And you can see one of our workers put some poly under those spray tables, so the water that comes off the sprayer, instead of running onto your legs, runs into that drainage area. And then, that giant branch of a willow came off a big willow tree that, in the size, probably like the happiest willow tree in the land. It's got tons of water, and then farther to the right is where we get our compost delivered. So it's got roots growing into the compost. So
For the spraying, the washing, we just use 2 regular garden hoses with a, what do we call those sprayers?
it's at the top of Wonder Water.
Wonder Water. Yeah, so I think it'd be nicer to have something that's easier to turn on and off. That would be a
Yeah, those
something.
hands-free spray rigs look really nice.
Yeah, they look very attractive. And if we need shade, well, the willow provides some shade depending on the time of day. We have kind of played with setting up easy ups for shade, but we haven't found it's always worth it if we just keep things in the shade before we park our cart under the shade and then wash things fast and get it right in the cooler. It usually works. But yeah, so we haven't really considered building a covered structure here.
One other last detail here, it's hard to see, but at the bottom of there's the drainage from our indoor area runs out to here as well. We have I think it's like a 40-gallon tank that collects the water, and then a sump pump that pumps it out, and the hose comes out to the same drainage area between the 2 outdoor wash
Yeah,
stands. So
you
all
can
the
kind
indoor,
of see the pipe in between going through between the 2 stands.
so all the wash water. Yes, exactly, right there. Yep. So
And we also have an outdoor sink for hand washing that drains to the same place. So if you want to go to the next page.
yeah, I think the next picture. So it's our indoor area. We've got a couple of tables.
It's a 30 by 48 greenhouse, but only about a half is
Quarter.
used. Okay, a quarter to a third is for WashPack. The rest is storage. So in the picture, it's not currently being used for washing. It's just drying bins, but the 2 tables, the left and the right, you can set up 2 wash stands, and we just use
The orange spinners.
the orange spinners for drying, and the Sterilites. You can actually see behind the blue bins drying
On the right side.
for washing, the 2 basin system. So we oh, go ahead.
Then we set up those pink trugs on the bottom of the table. We set up to catch the water that comes out the spinners. The floor is like a what do you call it? Stamped gravel. So we try to not necessarily dump a bunch of water in there, but the water does drain down. It's built on a fairly wet section, like low-lying wet section. So that's why we kind of like had someone bringing in some gravel. It's not just on the straight ground, so that then it's raised slightly from the surrounding area.
However, just with so there's no spraying going on. It's just the greens washing in here, but we do spray out bins into that large tub, and so there is some splashing, and it does get a little mucky on busy days. So that's something we'd like to work on, probably bringing in some more gravel to fill in the low areas. And it's easy. It's easy to clean because the bins are easy to spray out, and the tables we can squeegee or spray and squeegee as needed. So it's pretty, again, it's multi-purpose. We can clear out the wash bins and set up pack stations, or but one of our limiting factors is just the volume we need to put through. We're kind of at our limit for this, I would say.
Yeah, I think we do 2 harvests in the summer. We do 2 harvests a week, and probably about 150 to 200 pounds of greens split between those 2 harvests, and it all goes through. All the greens get washed through here. And one other thing, the roof of this is it's not clear plastic. It's a white and silver tarp from the hip boards up and out, and then there's a clear poly, kind of like from the hip boards down, like a roll-up side would be on a regular house. This doesn't have roll-up sides, but even with that white and silver tarp, it stays decent temperature even in the summer.
Yeah, and the ends we just mostly keep open except for the winter. And it does have lights. So now that the days are shorter, we do make use of the lights in the evenings. And those are just, extension cords overhead.
Yeah, one of the improvements we made, I think last year, now there's an electrical panel in this that then the pump plugs into, and also the walk-in coolers go through that electrical panel. So they're in the past, we've had everything running off of extension cords, and when it rained, if any of the connections got wet, the GFCI would trip and we would find the cooler shut off. We also use this space for packing CSA orders and stuff. So, that's one of the reasons we don't like to have permanent setup yet is, then all those bins on the tables get cleared out and we can use that for packing.
Yeah, it's not shown in the picture, but to the left, there's an open area where we can set up more tables for packing, whether it's just bagging or packing orders. And then just in the notes, I mentioned that, we also do packing outside in the shade when we need this indoor space for greens washing or CSA packing. So it's kind of a portable, mobile approach where we're just setting up our table. So there is some shuffling and lost time with that setup, but it's also easy to clean and it's just adaptable, I guess. So there's definitely pros and cons. On our scale, we feel like it's okay, but we're always looking ways to improve as well. Anything else? Oh, we just, in the picture, I didn't send in a lot of pictures. I wasn't sure how much we were going to be featured here, but we have two coolers. One's like a CoolBot cooler. What's the dimensions of that?
10 by 14.
Yep. And then we have what we call our warm bot. It's our old walk-in cooler, which is 8 by 8.
So that's set to like 50, 55. Well, yeah, I think 55 for like tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff and winter squash. And
they're both right outside the door of this wash pack area. So it's all close.
And along the right side outside of this area is where we stack all our, there's a hand washing sink is outside, and then where we stack all our empty bulk crates. And we use wet burlap on some of those bunch crops that we have a hanging area for them to keep them off the ground from being moldy.
Okay. I think that's the gist of it, unless anyone has specific questions. I guess one question I have, if anyone has recommendations, is the floor of our walk-in cooler gets muddy kind of fast from us coming in and out. Is there?
It's a new CoolBot, modular panel thing. So it's metal floor.
Do you have any sort of grate or pallet at the entryway, outside the entryway?
No, but it's gravel leading into it.
Yeah. That in terms of preventing it from happening, that could be one approach, is finding even just a metal grate of some sort that you could step on first and clear some of that off. And it does become a maintenance issue. You got to clear it out from time to time, but that might get the bulk of it off. And then I think the other option would be just plan for it to happen, and how can you address it, and maybe sweeping and squeeging, unfortunately. But, I can't think of much else. Other thoughts from folks?
Well, thanks for sharing. Appreciate you unmuting and pitching in. That's always great to see another example. Next up, hot off the press this morning, Lisa sent in a couple of photos. Are you on the call and could talk about your pack shed?
Hey, yeah, I'm happy to.
Awesome. Welcome.
So I sort of different from everybody else, haven't used this space yet. I'm brand new to managing the organic garden at Bowdoin College, and my first impression when I was interviewing and walking around was, this is going to need some work for the WashPack, because you can see it's really just there's like a 2-bay sink and a hydrant and an attempt at a little bit of a like plywood floor there, but it's not. It leaves a lot to be desired, and there's like a grape arbor growing right over it. So right now it's just getting showered in leaves constantly. and no roof or anything like that. So what, yeah, not having done much with it yet, I basically did like a final harvest when I arrived, and used it the once, which was really helpful just in thinking about improvements to be made for next season. But I super open to ideas people have. This is a residential lot in town Brunswick, basically. And so there's a lot of restrictions in terms of what's allowed. And then also a lot of opinions of neighbors of not necessarily what's allowed, but what they would prefer to be in their view shed or not. So what I want to do is have a real floor. The cheaper option and easier for the school is asphalt, just like regular pavement rather than concrete. And some sort of roof, which I think at least initially will just be like a pop-up tent or a tarp type of deal, but maybe over time could be an actual built roof. And I want to, right now it's really just this like little inset area. It's like alongside the barn here. But I want to extend it down the side of the building, because past that, like, those two barrels there is where my van is parked. So I would like to have basically be able to have things on wheels and go right to the van, sort of down that chute. Currently it's set up, there's like that little trap door under the window. I don't know if you all can see it in the photo, but currently how it's been utilized is that the farm manager would like push the bins of vegetables inside through that trap door, and the weigh station is inside, and then would walk around to physically go in themselves and load from there, which I was like, that's so inefficient and would drive me nuts. Yeah, so those are things I'm thinking about. For me, I think the biggest priority right now is a solid floor that I can wheel things on, just to improve the flow of the space in general. But I'm curious what other ideas folks might have about a pretty small space. And this is all for, it's about like 3/4 of an acre, no-till, pretty intensively managed vegetable space. And there's no cooler at this location. I take everything directly over to the dining hall at Bowdoin. So it's not in a cooler until like after everything is done being washed, really, and gets loaded up to go over, unless I were to say, based on the day, I really need to do multiple trips and get things in the cooler as quick as possible. But they use stuff pretty fast too, so it doesn't necessarily need to have super great lasting power. It's really salad heavy, and pretty much everything's going to be like on the salad bar in the next couple of days in the dining hall.
Looks like you're on the shady side of the building too.
Yeah, and it's on the shady side. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Couple of thoughts right off the cuff for me is it looks really easy to add a roof line in the corner you're in there and just kind of connect those two roofs. So that would be, a bigger investment, but would be pretty nice. And then, addressing the floor, thinking residential, I'm picturing like a stone patio, because there's several different options for a sort of patio areas around residential housing. Might be a little bit more challenging to clean than concrete. Ideally, asphalt can hold some dirt, but at the same time is a durable surface and perfect for rolling wheels. So not a bad idea if that's a low barrier to entry for your situation. And then swapping out the trap door for maybe a real door, and kind of providing a ramp or maybe a covered roof area over towards your van. What's the relation between here and the field? Is that close by?
Yeah, it's just on the other side of the building, really. So super close. The primary field, there's like a secondary field that is through a parking lot and across the street, more like centrally on campus.
What are other people's thoughts or suggestions on what they would do to improve this space?
Yeah, I agree about drainage, figuring out where the water should go. Like right now, underneath that sink, it just empties out onto the ground, essentially under the building, which doesn't seem super sustainable.
Garen commented, pavers are a good inexpensive material. Yeah, that's kind of what I had in my mind when I said patio.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good to think about. Awesome.
M works on a farm on Penn's campus. We have many of the same issues as well. Maybe some crushed stone down bottom. Yep. Or a stone, drainage kind of around if you land on a impervious surface, having some stone around the perimeter. And actually that too could help is, when you're adding in a real floor, raising up that floor a few inches so water can drain away from the building.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks.
That was all the farm examples that was sent in ahead of time.